Chapter 9. A Slaughter Woman. A slaughter woman is a force to be reckoned with. She says what she means, and she means what she says. The slaughter woman takes no prisoner and is always ready to defend her position. One characteristic of a slaughter woman is her shapely lower legs. My grandmother Ruby, my mother Yolanda, my sister Misty, and I all have this unique characteristic. You know how strong the trunk of a tree is? That signifies the strength of a slaughter woman. For example, my sister Misty, who, like me, gave birth to a baby at the hospital in Blue Island, Illinois, who was born with special needs. And this baby required her to demonstrate the type of strength that you can't read about, that you can't plan for, that you can't pay for, that you really have to be prayed into. I know that it was the Campbells mixed with the Slaughters that allowed her to embark on the 20-year journey that she experienced with my oldest nephew. When a woman is carrying a baby, she expects to have to care for her child when they are born. She expects to nurture the baby into an infant, into an adolescent, a young adult, and usher them into adulthood. Everyone's path doesn't go down that journey, and us slaughter sisters got a big dose of mama's baby, daddy's maybe. That's what Mama used to say when we both experienced motherhood as a single parent while raising special needs children. Now, my sister's journey, in comparison to mine, was similar but had major differences. While Jasmine can walk and move around freely, that wasn't the case for my nephew. I witnessed my sister carry my nephew on her hip and on her back. She, too, has those strong foundational legs as a slaughter woman. Those legs came in handy because my sister, for a long period of time, had to carry her son, my nephew, everywhere they went, up and down the stairs and back and forth to doctors' offices. Now, you may be thinking, well, that's a parent's job. It is, but when the child is 50 pounds and you are 150, that load is a lot heavier than many are equipped to deal with. But a slaughter woman, she's up for the challenge. I remember as a young child watching my grandmother Ruby operate in every space that had the luxury of meeting her, and every person that had the privilege of being in her presence. Miss Ruby held her head high. When she entered a room, you knew she was there. She didn't have to utter a word. She was there with her stern looks. Miss Ruby was a looker. She was a fair-skinned, black African-American woman, and Miss Ruby didn't take no. When Miss Ruby wanted something, you better sure. When Miss Ruby wanted something, you better bleep sure give it to her, or there was hell to pay. Miss Ruby was a woman who was clear about her intentions. She loved to shop. And I must admit, like my mother Yolanda, have been bitten by the shopping bug. I remember when we would take my grandmother Ruby to the shopping mall, and Miss Ruby was very particular about which shopping mall she would frequent. If you took her somewhere she didn't want to go, she wouldn't get out of the car. So you might as well turn around and go where she told you she wanted you to go. Miss Ruby also, back in the day, had white furniture with plastic covers. You remember those. You bet not drop anything on her furniture wrapped in plastic. Yes, the plastic, because Miss Ruby had spidey senses, and she knew if you dropped something. Her house was able to withstand the white glove treatment even before it was such a thing. Miss Ruby's house also smelled like mothballs. I never understood the concept of mothballs. I just know I didn't like it, but for whatever reason, whatever room you walked into at Miss Ruby's house, you could smell mothballs. Notice I said Miss Ruby's house. My grandfather, Asa II, affectionately known as June, lived there too. He paid the bills, but he was a willing participant in the Miss Ruby show. Well, my hubby Paul wasn't around for the Miss Ruby show. However, he has been able to be an active participant of the Dr. Lisa show. And he's still around, so I guess it must be a box office hit. Now, something you've got to understand about a Slaughter woman. Even though she's tough on the outside, she has a heart of gold on the inside. My younger cousin, Amber, is proof of that. Being a single mom, which seems to be a trend, but every time I see her, I am reminded of that Miss Ruby strength. Miss Ruby had worked many years for the Department of Aging, and it's no surprise that the months leading up to my 50th birthday, I found myself on the board of directors for a nonprofit organization that provides resources to the aging population. Look at your family and see the qualities that each one have. It's easy to look at the not-so-good qualities, but find and focus on what makes your family unique and talk about how great they are when you see them. My shed the weight moments. Number 1, I now understand why my legs are big and sturdy. It helps me maintain my physical strength, much like a tree that requires strong roots to stay upright. Number 2, always be clear about your intentions. Number 3, my strength is built on over 100 years of suffering. Number 4, just because you grew up following certain traditions doesn't mean you have to adapt to them. Number 5, it's important to look your best. It makes you feel great, even if you are crying on the inside. Open your Grow With Me journal and follow the prompts provided.